A new study is showing that the recession has caused a rise in suicide, particularly for men. According to the first study ever done to examine the psychological impact of the recession on a global scale, there has been a significant rise in men who commit suicide due to the decline of the economy. The study revealed there to be a 3.3% increase of men on a global scale who committed suicide in 2009 directly following the hit of the Great Recession. However, the majority of these additional deaths took place in 18 countries located in the Americas, either South or North America. In those countries, the suicide rate rose an average of 6.4% within that 1 year. The same study also showed a small decline in the rate of male suicides in most European countries. However, there have been recordings of similarly high jumps in certain countries that have been particularly affected by the recession as well, such as Greece, Italy, and Spain. Another recent study revealed that the U.S. suicide rate has increased at 4 times the rate between 2008 and 2010 than it did in the previous 8 years preceding the recession. So deaths from things other than suicide have also jumped significantly, and these studies are linking it to the hard times because, according to one person at the Congressional Budget Office, recessions are often, quote, correlated with deteriorating mental and physical health. So the actual stress of these economic times, even if you don't commit suicide, it can still play a devastating role against your health and well-being.
Well, you know, one thing that I actually got immediately is from when you were describing the countries where suicide had spiked. Okay, you're talking about countries that have been hit really hard with austerity measures. You've got Greece, Italy, Spain. Whereas on the opposite end, you've got countries in Europe with stronger safety nets, with less suicide. Now, is that coincidence or what?
I think you got it
Countries
backward.
with strong safety nets actually reduce suicide during hard economic times because they're not as hard.
There's some holes in there.
There's a big hole in there. Greece had.
As a general rule, it seems to be if you have a strong safety net program during a recession, your people are going to make it out a little bit better, and your economy is going to be able to recover a little bit.
Some people are benefiting from this. The rise of the more people are buying comfort food, ice cream, chips. the cope with their depression.
Well, your correlation is kind of backwards. Greece had the biggest safety net.
Yeah, they bit off more than they could chew. They had no GDP.
It. But you could retire at like 60, 61, 62 in Greece. With
However, you're missing the point of where, I mean, it gets a little more nuanced. Okay, so it gets a little bit more specific.
Countries with better planning basically have better results. Basically, not necessarily just countries that have.
Remember, Greece was crushed by imposed austerity from Germany, which is actually one of the countries that is doing pretty well. And they're actually to the left of us, even though they're considered the conservative government, Angela Merkel, right? She's the conservative over there, and they're actually to the left of American politics right now.
I realize that, but I'm saying the Greeks had the big safety net. They had the big social welfare.
Well, so does Norway and Sweden, but they didn't crash either.
But Greece had no planning, though. That was the big problem they had. They had no planning. That was the big issue.
They couldn't afford it.
Not only that, also Goldman Sachs didn't make secret deals to dump their toxic securities on Norway and Sweden either, just like they did on Greece.
Right, Greece was basically screwed over. There are extenuating circumstances that, in spite of their advanced safety nets, their economy still managed to crash.
Right,
but it wasn't because of their safety nets.
It would still have those safety nets, but it got taken away by the crushing austerity. So it doesn't really count, Sean, because they took it away.
Well,
they took those safety nets away,
they haven't taken them all away. They've made The Greeks haven't accepted the terms of the terms for the bailout.
They've accepted a lot of the terms, and that's why they're in crushing austerity.
safety
You know,
net-
they're actually set to have a surplus in their budget this time,
Yeah,
so they
but
can actually go to paying off their loans.
That's fine, but they should. I would leave the euro if I was Greece. I would have never had them in the euro.
Germany's talking about getting the fuck out of the euro. Going back to Marx.
I would all get out the euro, but like,
Right, but-
I think the euro is a disaster. But my point is, they couldn't afford their safety net, and like that, it's being taken away now. So I understand people killing themselves, but it's not because of the austerity. It's because they couldn't afford it. Like you have to, like eventually you can't pay for it.
But that's not exactly the point either that I was trying to make. Is that places that have that safety net,
I got you. Definitely got you.
stop people from having to from falling on these hard times and committing suicide. So your
have you seen?
example doesn't really hold up.
To me, it's obvious that the less sound economies are the ones that are committing suicide.
Yes.
Like I don't
Right, ones
like
that have been
safety
hit the
net,
hardest
no
by the
safety net.
recession. And remind you, who started the recession other than Jim DeMint? Other than Jim DeMint, we caused the recession. Our
I was gonna say Goldman Sachs and Honeywell.
Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan.
I was
No,
gonna
let's-
say
From,
Greenspan,
Larry
and
Summers.
There's Alan Greenspan. Yeah.
Greenspan and Bernanke.
Yep.
These Summers, Geithner,
Yes.
all of them.
I got some good news on that old depression suicide thing. I used to live in the state of Washington, had the highest suicide rate in all the United States. Since they legalized marijuana, suicide rate down.
Well, yeah. Why go up on a building to jump when you can just get high?
Yeah.
But,
That's
like,
great, but and then that makes sense. But I mean, come on, it's common sense. If you live in a country that is hit hard by the recession and there are no social safety nets preventing you from starving to death or dying on the street from some horrible disease that you can't get medical attention for, or something like that, or if you lost your job,
Lost your
for
home.
example, unemployment was a huge factor in these studies, then yeah, you're going to have higher rates of suicide. You're going to see a jump in the rate of suicides.